As above, so below.
Welcome to Connecting with Your Coincidence. I am your host, Dr. Bernard Beitman, MD. I'm a psychiatrist. I study meaningful coincidences, as many of you by this time know. Please come to our Coincidence Cafe that's sponsored by the Coincidence Project. It's every third Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
You can come to that for an hour and a half and tell each other coincidence stories is what happens at the Coincidence Project. So please do that. My book is still available. Connecting with Coincidence the book is called Meaningful Coincidence, and it's tells you something about how to use them as well as how to explain them. And I'm going to tell a simple coincidence story, and it's like some of these simple coincidence stories are just nice because they're simple and effective. Some of these get real complicated and get into a lot of detail and questions and symbols and stuff. And this is one of those nice simple ones, and a thank you somehow to whoever you thank for these things and whoever can explain something. My glasses were scratched enough so that on my trip to Virginia Beach, I live in Charlottesville, Virginia, the road signs became blurry, blurrier before they should have been blurry. Maybe I needed new vision prescription. So I called for an appointment. The reception asked what times and days are best for me. I said, well, how about Tuesdays at 11 or Fridays at 2 p.m.? And but then she told me that my regular ophthalmologist was scheduling a patient 3 months away. I don't know. So you want to try another provider? I said, yes. And she said, okay, well, we can do tomorrow, Tuesday at 11 a.m. Well, 3 months later and tomorrow, what could I do? It was a great choice to be able to make, and that was quick service. And that's the kind of serendipity, meaningful coincidence that pays off. I mean, right now, you know, it's a good thing that can happen, and it was. Well, our guest today is currently a mystery guest because you can't see her, but you will see her in just a moment. Our guest today is Lexi Wirth, and Lexi is a pretty amazing young woman, and I met her through a series of coincidences at the Coincidence Cafe. We happened to be put in the same breakout group together, and we got to talking, and here she is. She describes herself as a Gen Z high-frequency coincider, and she is, who experiences synchronicities, serendipities, and serialities every day. She is a highly spiritual person who enjoys connecting with people, nature, and animals through meaningful coincidences. And it's a delight to have her on the show. She's 22, and she's here for a lot of reasons. But one of them is that she is the youngest person we've ever interviewed on this program. And she gets out through TikTok to lots of people her age. And we're going to be talking about TikTok and her Gen Z connections today. But first, Lexi, please tell us a coincidence story.
Hello, Dr. Bernie, and thank you for your kind words. Thank you for having me. Sorry about my kitten in the background. She's noisy. But a meaningful coincidence that I experienced just last week was with my best friend of almost 10 years at this point, Cecilia. Cecilia and I have been experimenting with psilocybin for a few years at this point, and we recently had a psilocybin experience a few weeks ago. And just last week, we both had a shared dream that we were on this trip, but it obviously we weren't actually on any psilocybin at the time. We both woke up at the same time, texted each other, having the weirdest dream right now. She texts back, I'm having the exact same experience. I keep falling back asleep, waking up and thinking that I'm tripping and just going back into this dream. The trip gets crazier, and then I wake up, I snap out of it, go back to sleep, keeps happening. And the exact same thing was happening to me that exact same night. And it both lasted about 7 hours for each of us. So it was similar to a trip, as you would call it. So that was
as you might call it. Now, you were both having dreams that were psychedelic at the same time.
Yes.
The content of the dreams, what was you were implying that there's something similar about the content of the dreams.
So the content was that we were both together. We were both seeing each other's faces in the same kind of light. And this had happened the previous 2 weeks when we had actually been tripping together. But we both dreamed of our late best friend Hannah as well, and that she was with us. We both dreamed that there were deer running around. So we had a very, very similar experience. And maybe that's just because we had previously done psychedelics together and we've been doing them for years at this point, but we are very close, very connected.
Well,
so.
that you're very close and very connected is part of what we're talking about here, is that it's that there's something about your connection that allowed this to happen. And when you take psychedelics with a really good friend, it brings you closer together if you have a good trip together, if it's a good experience. I've heard stories from like one of my patients who had some very weird experiences with a friend on psychedelics, and it so much depends on who you're with and the context you're in to what kind of experience you have. And it's important, just we're talking about this for anybody thinking about taking about psychedelics, and I mean in higher doses, not the microdosing, is that the set and setting, the set you have, the mental set you have, and the setting you do it in makes a lot of difference in what kind of trip you have. And I did some research in medical school when I was in medical school for just about how expectation influences experience as well as the context in which you are in. So that the two of you are very good friends. You've been friends for 10 years. You've been taking psychedelics for a couple of years yourselves. You are very close, and you knew well enough to be able to, one of you called the other, doesn't even matter, to say, hey, I'm having this trippy dream, and then you started comparing notes. Let's look a little bit more at the content of the dream, because already I'm trying to be able to suggest to people that there is shared dream experiences. There are shared dream experiences. There's one story I knew, I can't find it, but 3 different people had a dream that the 16-year-old girl was pregnant, and she was. And then, so in order to be able to know you have a shared dream, you have to tell each other. And you were able to tell each other. But let's look at the dream itself and the content. There were deer in it, and there was a friend of both of you of yours that had died. Tell us more about the dream and what all that might mean.
Yeah, so I think we both dream of Hannah, our late friend, a lot, because we were a little trio in high school and college, and she passed 2 years and a couple months ago on her birthday, unfortunately, on her 21st birthday. So we both definitely dream of her a lot. And we also experienced so many synchronicities with Hannah. And I think that in itself has meaning as to why we still experience synchronicities surrounding her, even when she's passed. So we loved her dearly. We were all very, very, very close, and we would have been friends for for our entire lives. So yeah.
Could you tell us something about the synchronicities that you experienced with Hannah, having passed?
We dream about her all the time, usually on the same nights, and we both always see cardinals very frequently. I know a lot of people signify cardinals as a loved one visiting you. We both write poetry, and we've found that our poetry about Hannah has been similar. It's shared very similar sentiment and similar words. So, and that's also, we've been friends for 10 years at this point. So of course we are similar people, but we're very connected through Hannah.
So you write poetry. It's not just your dream about Hannah. You write poetry that is similar to each other and about Hannah.
Yeah. Well, we also are we're big Sylvia Plath fans, so that could have to do with it as well.
And for those of us who are not as familiar with Sylvia Plath, how is Sylvia Plath and the novelist related to what you're describing?
Well, Sylvia Plath wrote very, very dark poetry that evoked a lot of emotions, and it was very written from her heart. And I think that's similar to how Cecilia and I write. And Sylvia Plath died a pretty horrific, infamous death, putting her head in a gas stove in the 60s. And when those stoves were outlawed, deaths in England went down by a third. So she's an infamous poet who writes beautifully, and Cecilia and I are very inspired by her.
Yeah, poet. And because you and your friend and your two friends have read poetry by Sylvia Plath, you've learned to be able to express yourself from your hearts.
I would say so. We love Margaret Atwood's poetry. I don't like The Handmaid's Tale, but I do like her poetry.
And so does your friend, and Hannah did too.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you begin to suggest by your what does it mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to you that you the two of you now, but the three of you almost still are dreaming, experiencing, even writing poetry similarly, and probably some other things. What does that mean to you that that's happening?
Well, I think that we all kind of came together through our intellectualization. Like we all very much enjoyed reading, being creative, expressing ourselves through art, writing, and we all shared a similar mental illness. So I will say that we're all a little cuckoo, all a little crazy. And I think that only served to bring us closer together and experience
Well,
connection.
as you know, I'm a psychiatrist, so I go, what? Same mental illness too? You don't have to tell me what that was or how it was, but usually depression is the one that is most common. But I hope yours is a little crazier. Do you want to tell us about it?
So I am diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. It's genetic. It's my mother, my aunt have it. So, and Cecilia, as well as Hannah, they both had bipolar. They both have. Hannah had bipolar 1, Cecilia bipolar 2. Me, borderline personality disorder. Cecilia also had borderline personality disorder. So very overlapping mental disorders that really just brought us closer together. Also would make us fight like crazy, but the fights got really bad. But we loved each other dearly despite our
You'd fight like crazy.
we would fight like crazy ladies, but I think it was out of love.
Well, Hannah died on her birthday. What did that mean to you and Cecilia?
So I know that I've spoken with you about this, but I dreamed about Hannah passing in the months leading up to her death. So the morning that I found out that she passed, I was not at all really surprised. I was more like, wow, this is a confirmation of like, have I spoken this into existence? Like that is something that I've thought of as like, have I dreamed this kind of into existence? Like, have I prophesized this somehow? Like, so it was absolutely horrifying. But at the same time, I think very meaningful that she passed on her 21st. It wasn't very surprising to really any of us because she had struggled with her mental illness, as well as, with patients with bipolar, they're more likely to abuse drugs. And Hannah was no stranger to opiates, particularly. And in North Carolina, we've got a bad fentanyl issue. So that is unfortunately what she passed from. And I don't think it was very, very surprising to many of us, but definitely didn't think that she would go that soon. So
You knew somehow. That can be a feeling of responsibility also.
right.
Not maybe you brought it into existence by thinking about it. Maybe you could have done something to prevent it, is the usual thing. The trouble with precognition of disaster is that, particularly somebody is that if you know it's going to happen, you should have done something about it. And so I imagine you still have, and maybe Cecilia too, some guilt about not preventing it.
Yeah, we had a lot of guilt, but I think at this point we've accepted that was going to happen no matter what, and we couldn't have done anything.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. She's still around, obviously.
Yes.
Do you have any sense of her communicating to you, maybe besides the cardinal?
I think through nature a lot, like so Cecilia and I, when we had taken psilocybin a couple weeks ago, we were walking in downtown Carborough, little town by Chapel Hill. We were walking around and all of these deer were just standing there, like just so close to us. I was like, Cece, like, is this normal? Like, do the deer here just like, they just aren't scared of people? And I'd like to think that was Hannah. I think Hannah was very deer-like. So I like to think that one of them was her.
Because what?
She was very deer-like. I would describe her as deer-like. Just she looked similar to a deer.
She looked similar to a deer.
Big eyes, just doe-like.
Yeah. And a deer were in your shared dream too with Cecilia.
Yep. Yeah.
So she's there with you through at least a cardinal showing up and deer both in your dreams and in this reality of the small town near
Yes.
Chapel Hill. Do you ever feel any direct communication from her?
I wouldn't say that I feel direct communication with her except by my dreams.
Except by your dream. So when you dream about her, that could be the way. Is she talking to you in your dreams sometimes?
I like to think that she visits me, but she never talks to me in my dreams. And I actually didn't have a dream with her until this year. I did not dream of her at all after she passed until this year. I started dreaming about her again. So And I'm not sure really why that is.
Well, maybe I'm going to guess, we don't have to know, that you and Cecilia gave up feeling guilty about her and accepted that she passed, because that's a mourning period of a year maybe of the guilt, and I should have done something and whatever, I'm missing her, and maybe you just got to accept it, and that would allow her to visit you more easily in the dreams, because you had a barrier really before that. But we don't know, but let's say that's what's happened. One of the most important things you've told me is that on TikTok, and ladies and gentlemen, it's now we are announcing that TikTok is a place in which Lexi finds a lot of other people interested in synchronicity, serendipity, seriality. I'm glad you mentioned all three of them, because it's important. I've gotten negative feedback for not calling it all synchronicity, but I use the word meaningful coincidences because there are some differences among synchronicity, serendipity, and seriality, and you're acknowledging that by being able to use all three terms. What we're trying to get to is that you have told me that on TikTok, people your age, Gen Z people, are recognizing the collective consciousness of humanity. Could you tell us about that, please?
Absolutely. So I've seen videos with hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of views and likes, just with folks from my generation specifically, that are highly spiritual and in tune with the world around them and just connected, or they want to be connected with other people. And they've got this sense that there is a sort of developing collective consciousness among our generation and even the millennial generation. But I have seen so many examples of people talking about glitches in the matrix, like synchronicities that they're experiencing, that they would find, they find them to be meaningful, and folks just wanting to really be connected with the world and with people around them. I think that each generation experiences this to some extent, kind of seeing the world burn around them in this capitalist kind of disaster that's going on right now, with inflation being just insanely high. Like people, morale is low among a lot of people in my generation, and I think they're trying to push through that by finding a deeper meaning in life and through coincidences and through just meaningful experiences.
Yeah, the three of you, Hannah and Cecilia and you, Lexi, formed a collective consciousness. You were not separate in the way that people usually think of being separate, as people from the boomer generation might think, which I think I'm a member, but not in my experience, not in my heart. It's I've been looking for you, is what I'm trying to say. I want to be among people who are recognizing the possibility of a collective consciousness, and that synchronicity, serendipity, seriality, meaningful coincidences are ways in which we can recognize and experience that we are part of the same thing. So I'm a what do we call it? I've been a poet looking for an audience, you could say. I'm a writer looking for my people, the mind of the people who think like me, and I think like them. And I think I'm stumbling into it through a coincidence on the Coincidence Cafe with you, and TikTok looks like the way into it. And could you tell us more about what you find on TikTok that is about what you just described?
Absolutely. So I see a lot about what people call angel numbers. So seeing 1111 on the clock, seeing 1111, seeing 333, seeing 444, people finding that seriality and finding other coincidences in them. I know in your book you mentioned seeing something at 1111 and giving your son the amount of do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I forget what it is, but yeah, I hit 1111 when something else happened 1111. Yeah.
Yeah, so I experience that a lot. Just like I see 333 all the time, 444 especially. And I think folks on TikTok also experience that kind of seriality, and they find it to be meaningful. And I also see people sharing just the crazy, just synchronicities that happen in their life, and it's just something so out of the ordinary that you can't not find meaning in it. So
This since I'm just getting used to Instagram a little bit, I don't know TikTok, but TikTok has short reels on it usually. So how do you tell a coincidence story in a short period of time on TikTok?
so there is you can tell a story up to 3 minutes long.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yes. So usually, and if you have enough followers, you can tell a story up to 10 minutes long. You have to have a certain amount of followers, and I think maybe some sort of credentials, but anyways, so people will also put things in parts. So people will make a part 1, a part 2, a part 3. And if you're really invested in this story, if somebody catches your eye, story captures your attention, then you'll go and watch it in all parts and like all of those videos and comment, wow, like that's an amazing story that you've got. Like I'm gonna follow you. So TikTok is definitely a great way for Gen Zs especially to just get mass communication out and just talk about their spiritual experiences. Yeah.
So one of the things that you see on TikTok, which I thought was you have to be moving around. Can you just talk to the camera and that
You can
works
just
okay?
talk to the camera. Yeah.
Okay. See, because I have this funny feeling that this desire to ban TikTok is not just about Chinese, but it's about inhibiting Gen Z from communications.
And that is a very similar sentiment to what a lot of Gen Zs think about really partisan support for banning TikTok. It's partisan for a reason. They agree for a reason, and they usually, both sides, left and the right, cannot come to agreement on a lot of things, but for some reason the Restrict Act is something that they really want to make happen, and it's a great way to stop folks from communicating and talking about their experiences and becoming kind of aware of what is happening in our society, and I think gaining that collective consciousness, I would say.
It reminds me a bit of banning LSD back in the old days. That there was a fight to stop consciousness raising, and it just looks too similar. To blame the Chinese
Yes.
is part of it. And there's articles about the Chinese spreading data around. The newspapers are selling the Chinese thing, but nobody's recognizing what we're talking about here is that it's a way of collecting the minds of Gen Z people, because TikTok's mostly Gen Z, I'm guessing. It's again, when I was growing up, they didn't want us to listen to Elvis Presley, just so you know. There's always this thing, but this is more dangerous than Elvis was. They felt Elvis was, some of them still think Elvis is problematic. But this is consciousness raising. This is collecting the collective consciousness. And that is what I am been trying to be able to say, that I call it the psychosphere, as you might have seen in my book.
Yes.
Our mental atmosphere And I'm using the psychosphere idea as a way to explain telepathy, how it might work between you and Cecilia, for example, and maybe even with Hannah, how things are connected with Hannah and among the three of you still, that there's stuff going on in this what you're using collective consciousness or the psychosphere, our mental atmosphere, where there's communications going on that that TikTok is facilitating, so that you can. A little while ago, I would have been what you're taking psychedelics when you're 19 or 18. But I know somebody who did, and who's way older than you. She's 29 and didn't really do it very well. But it's and you probably didn't either. Probably had some bad trips, because that's part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But you have managed to do it. So here you are in a responsible job, still being able to do some of the not so crazy things that you're doing. That, I mean, people doing what you have done up to now. When I was growing up, and drinking was bad, which still is, but then all other kind of drugs. But psilocybin is probably one of the better drugs ever around for human beings, for various reasons. And I used to call it silly cybin, just because it's fun. But if you look at the word psilocybin, the first part of the four syllables, the first syllable is C, or psi, P-S-I, psilos. Psi means mind. Lo in Hebrew means no, or could be nothing. Psi, again, another psi, mind again. So mind, nothing, mind, and then be, or bin, the existence, the word be. Psilocybin, or psilocybe mexicana, was one of the first ones coming around from Mexico. So you have mind, nothingness, and existence. So you have the contradiction of existence and nothingness, with mind beginning and mind in the middle. And psilocybin turns out to be a mind expanding drug compared to like MDMA, and LSD to some degrees does it too. But there's something a little special about the mushroom that makes it magic. That I think anyway, that's my little riff. I could make a little song about it sometime, but that's my riff about it. But okay, Lexi, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I have to get out on TikTok, is what this is, because I get to be like, well, I'm a psychiatrist. I went to Yale Medical School. I was chairman of the psychiatry department. I have credentials that make me supposedly believable. Credo, like it has something to do with believing. So that's one thing to be able to think about. But let's see if we can get further in to not the politics so much, but just what TikTok is doing for you and your generation. Now, you've told me some, but there's got to be a lot more that you can tell us.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think TikTok is a great way to show you like-minded folks that are thinking similar to you, people that are wanting to be in tune with their spirituality. And TikTok is great. Its algorithm is wonderful at pushing out content that you want to see, and that can in itself create coincidences kind of on your behalf, because the algorithm knows what you want to see, and it's going to push out your content to people that want to see your similar like-minded concepts. So TikTok is just, I really enjoy it for the folks that I kind of meet on there, and people who just, they share similar life experience, and they want to further explore this means of collective consciousness, like globally, not even just in America. It's you're seeing content from people in European countries and in South America. Like you're seeing it, people from all walks of life. So
globally,
yeah,
people from all walks of life. Again, Gen Z people, mostly.
yeah, mostly millennials too.
And some millennials. Yeah, you got to have some of them in there too. There's a heartfelt drive that I'm getting from you, that you're getting from TikTok, of people wanting something. Please try to keep describing, maybe by example, what they want, what you want.
I guess people just they want to feel connection with other humans and with the earth. I think that we're kind of seeing that we've been slowly but surely destroying our earth, and climate change just keeps getting worse. It keeps impacting us, and folks want to kind of come together, Gen Z specifically, to resolve that and just be more connected with each other and kind. I think hyper individualism in America is a real issue, and it's causing lack of community, isolation. And I think that Gen Z folks really want to try and turn that around and make it so that we can build communities again and just have our people, and just be aware that everyone has their own spirituality, and just I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain, Dr. Bernie.
You don't know it, but I just read what you just said in a group interested in Gaiaopolis, trying to get from a techno-oriented city to a one that's has the qualities and qualifications and values you just described, of compassion, connectedness, and then the green that goes along with it, and watching out for inhibiting the global warming that we are using, that we are doing to ourselves. What you just said is there are some older people saying the same thing, but they don't know. They think you're as stupid as they were when they were growing up. And I was pretty sure that's not right, because I have grandchildren, and how do they do what they're doing? And the younger ones keep picking up what the older ones have already found out through the psychosphere or morphic resonance, in various ways this is happening. But the younger ones get it earlier because we already figured some of the stuff out. And because we're destroying the planet, it's mostly older people's doing, are destroying the planet, and you have to inherit it. I figured, well, okay, this is happening with younger people, and you're confirming with just what you said, what I've had in mind for how meaningful coincidences can be assisting in the direction that you're just talking about. Could you have some idea about how meaningful coincidences might be useful in creating a world that you're looking for?
I think in finding meaning through a coincidence, you are kind of affirming the belief that we all are more connected than we probably realize, and that there is, I don't know how to like say this without sounding crazy.
I'm crazy. So, and let me help you define whether it's crazy or not, because it's not going to be. Go ahead.
Well, I just I don't know. I think that people truly are more aware of each other's kind of feelings and emotions, and just sense of who they are, and just like who they are as people. Like I don't know. I'm very big on like empathy and like just being able to feel what others are feeling and just kind of sense like sometimes I feel like I can I feel like I can read people's minds sometimes. I finish people's sentences for them all the time. Like I think that we are much more connected than we realize. And I think that meaningful coincidences help us to understand that.
Lexi, I'm a psychiatrist. I know what crazy is. That's what I have in my starting off with my book. I start off with that, and that you can read other people's minds, and there are ways to think about how to do that, and you can do it at a distance sometimes, as you do with your friend Cecilia, but you probably also do it with other people as well. That word simulpathity that's also in my book is one of the 4 coincidence types, is feeling the pain of a loved one at a distance. And I wouldn't be surprised if you've done that, has happened with you, or you felt the distress of someone else. There's got to be more like you in the Gen Z one. And please, you ain't crazy. I'm crazy. I can find people who just say, you don't know what you're talking about, you're missing it. But I know what I'm talking about because I've studied this stuff, and I have the background to be able to be trusting in it. You don't, and I do. And a lot of the other people your age are having to get confirmation from each other. And part of what I want to be able to do is say, Lexi, you can pick up other people's feelings. You can pick up other people's thoughts. You can predict what they might be doing or then what they might be saying. That we have the capacity to experience our environments as people who are called indigenous would do a lot of, because they were open to what's around them. So we're coming back within the technology to a time when we can do something like what indigenous people can still do unless we wipe them out, which is what mostly capitalism is doing.
Right.
They want to get rid of this kind of thinking where we are all connected. They want to stay with this. They want to stay with capitalism ranked high. And then, were you in school? Were you told that Darwin said the survival of the fittest?
Yes, yes, I was in my
Well,
biology.
that I'm reading is a capitalistic projection. It's not true about what Darwin was saying, from what I have read in a couple of places recently. Darwin was supposed to have said, and I've got to validate this, that species survive through cooperation and not destroying their environment. Now, just imagine if we would have been told that in school, instead of this capitalistic thing of the survival of the fittest and it's all mine. And I got to get what I want to get. And that would have been a major change in all of our thinking from the beginning. So what do you, well, you understand that we're being programmed to think capitalistically. You understand that because you deal with capitalists as part of your job.
Absolutely. And I love my job. I truly, I very much so enjoy my job, and I find a lot of meaning in my job. And I connect with so many folks who are very similar to me. Mostly I work with older folks who are probably Gen X. And I really love that group of folks. And a lot of them have got a lot of money and they've got similar sentiment to me, though. I find myself relating to them a lot. So I love my job, even though I kind of am a cog in the machine, as you would call it. But
well, let's tell people what you do. We didn't do that yet.
So I'm a fundraiser for a university, and I raise a lot of money. I really like my job. I I connect with folks who would like to start scholarships, folks who would like to be annual donors, and I meet in person over Zoom, and I love the people that I work with internally and externally. I found so much meaning in my job, and creating scholarships is one of my favorite things to do because you're making an immediate impact on student lives, and folks want to pay it forward. They got scholarships when they were in school, kind of closing the gap between tuition costs, and because it's crazy. We need to revamp higher education because it cannot continue this way. It's not acceptable, and I would like to think that I am working to change higher education in America. I hope that I can be influential one day on the system. But for now, I'm doing what I can to close that gap between the tuition costs and having students actually be able to afford to go and get a higher education. So
Wonderful. I wondered how you did that, and what I want from you, I can just tell you, what I want from you is to establish a program in meaningful coincidences within a university, a program that teaches people about meaningful coincidences and that researches meaningful coincidences. That's it. That's all.
yeah. Oh, that's it. That's
all.
like...
That's all. I'm starting to connect with some graduate students at Columbia University. I just interviewed one on my podcast, one of the graduate students, and it's been published. He's old; he's 32, and he's very much part of a group that wants to bring synchronicity to global awareness.
Okay.
And so, and I'm a recovering academic, and I can't get it out of my blood, but I got to come in a way that I could feel comfortable with it. So I want to do just what I said, get to younger people. And here at the University of Virginia, I haven't been able to find a way to be able to do that. But I'm just putting that out there in the collective mind. Maybe not that's for you to do, but it's for what I want to be able, that's an intention I have, education and research in meaningful coincidences.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm still, as we get towards the end of our discussion today, I'm still curious about TikTok, and if you could just tell us some stories that about your interaction with people on TikTok, and also other Gen Z people that you know personally, and their experience of synchronicity and their experience of the collective mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. So on TikTok, I definitely run into folks just speaking about their their understanding of their spirituality and what they think that it means for them and kind of the world around them. And I have met a ton of people who just they run into meaningful coincidences, and they think of that as being part of their spirituality and just kind of them being human and their understanding of what it means to be a human who's empathic and who understands the needs of society. And I've met a lot of folks and talked about, oh, you should come to this coincidence cafe that happens every third Saturday of the month. And I'm not sure that any of them will ever actually do it, but I have reached out to a lot of people. I will just randomly DM people that I see talking about their experiences. I'll be like, you should come to this. And they're like, oh, like that sounds interesting. And then I forward them over the link to the coincidence project. I'm like, oh, you should go take this quiz at the bottom. Like, tell me what score you get. So I've definitely found that I've connected with a lot of people who have similar views to me and who maybe will join us in the coincidence cafe.
Well, if I were a Gen Z person, I'd be intimidated by all the older people there. And
I'm
is
not
that
intimidated by the older. I like them.
you are not, but I'm thinking more about the other people on TikTok or many of the other people there. Um, uh, I don't know. I mean, how can we facilitate their involvement is part of my question. You're doing it as best you can, I think.
And I think that is a great question. Bernie, I think that you should make a TikTok and start making videos.
Yeah, I have somebody supposed to be helping me with social media, and we're doing Instagram, and she's got a bunch of reels. We have a whole bunch of reels.
Okay.
One
Yeah,
of
you could post snippets of like your podcasts on TikTok. Like you could post it directly to there.
I think I'm going to ask her to do that for the various reasons, and because this seems to be where I need to be able to go. And I've got, as I said, I've got a lot of stuff already.
Hmm.
Like my one recent one was like was why we're here on Earth. Did I say that? Yeah, I did, and it was like a succinct thing that should be out there. So I think I've been thinking about it anyway, but okay, I'll do that. I'll do that just to get out there more.
I think you should. I think you would find success.
Okay, because this is where it's Instagram seems to be a more plotting thing, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Um, and what about in your personal life, people that you interact with in your age group, in addition to Cecilia? What about them? Some of them, and synchronicity and group mind.
So I've got a lot of friends from college who I still keep up with, and I tell them all about my synchronicities that I experience. I've got one friend, Alexa, who she thought I was crazy when I first started talking to her about this, but then as I've continued, she's started telling me her meaningful coincidences, and she's like, oh, like I see it now. So it's funny how I've kind of been able to tell people more about the project, and as I tell them about my synchronicities and what I experience, they not only they affirm that I'm not crazy, they're like, oh, like I can see that this actually is meaningful to you and you're my dear friend. So I'm gonna hear you out. I'm not gonna think you're crazy. And then they start experiencing coincidences and they start telling me about them. So this has happened with, I want to say five of my girlfriends from college. So I've told really everyone in my life about meaningful coincidences and the TCP project. So
You are a coincidence ambassador, Lexi.
it seems so.
It seems so. I mean, what you're doing is what the people in the Coincidence Project on the board do, as well as our coincidence allies. You're doing that. How did you get to the Coincidence Cafe? How'd that happen?
So Bernie, I was looking up the relationship between psychosis and synchronicity. And I came upon an article from you because at this point in my life, I want to say this was back in November. I can't even remember, or maybe this was the beginning of this. I don't know. My timeline's off, but I was researching that, and this was within the first few months of my job. So yes, it was last year. Anywho, was researching that. I came across an article from you. I DM'd you on LinkedIn. I private messaged you, whatever you call it, on LinkedIn. I sent you an invitation to connect. You accepted, and you reached back out to me very quickly and invited me to the Coincidence Project. So, and invited me to the cafe.
So the craziness thing got you.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I was going crazy because I was experiencing so many of what I think to be synchronicities. So I thought I was going a little crazy, but you confirmed that no, you're not crazy. You're just in tune. So
It's I can't tell you how wonderful it is for me to hear you tell me that. That's it's what I'm trying to do, not for just the people who know that the coincidences are real and worth talking about, but people on the edge who are experiencing them and feel isolated. And I can come along and say, I'm a psychiatrist, and I know the difference between crazy and not, and this is not crazy. This is picking up aspects of reality that a lot of people are missing. And for some reason or other, Lexi Wirth stumbled into it. Not because she was searching, because she was a borderline personality, whatever that means.
Right.
Whatever that means, because I don't know. It's been used a lot. Bipolar disorder, BPD, borderline personality disorder, BPD. I mean, what the original definition of borderline was between neurotic and psychotic.
Yes.
That's why it was called borderline. It was between, and the early ones were a little crazy. So because they were a little crazy, you can give them a little bit of antipsychotic and they'd be okay. And my second paper ever was on that 5 patients who were borderline in that way. Borderline psychotic is another way to think about it. Now it's gotten to be used in all kinds of ways. And I'm not making any diagnostic things, but man, you don't really do borderline very well, from what I can tell. You're not a good borderline, is what I'm trying to be able to suggest. But what do I know? What do I know? I get fooled a lot. What can I do? So that to know that for you and for other people, and I don't get this feedback very often, but I think it happens a lot more than I ever hear, that I say, no, you're not crazy when you're experiencing a lot of those things. And that's what it did for you. And with that, there is this blossoming of your coincidence ambassadoring. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to see, Lexi, and then to be able to have you and me put in the same breakout group on Zoom. We're at the Coincidence Cafe, and we wait a minute, like that. It's wonderful, and I'm so heartened to find you. I mean, it's reciprocal. What you're seeking is sometimes seeking you, and
Yeah.
that's what coincidences demonstrate. Did you know that one? That what you're seeking is seeking you sometimes?
I've heard that. I don't know
Well,
where I've heard it.
You've heard it. Well, it's happened right here. It's one of the examples, but you start looking, the thing about a lot of things with coincidences is we get all about myself and it's all my coincidence. But then you got to look at the other person, say, what's that other person's experience? And you do that with Cecilia. You share your experiences with each other. But then, so you know what goes on with her. But when you're involved with a coincidence with somebody else, finding out what their experience of the coincidence is often very helpful. Do you do that?
I would say so. Yes. I would say so.
Well, sometimes then you will find that what that person was looking for, you are also looking for. I don't know what percentage, that's the kind of thing that is researchable. It's the percentage of time when there's that reciprocalness in a coincidence. So I just like to be able to get numbers to say this is more, makes it more real to people and to me too, actually. Well, Lexi, we've come to the end of our time together in this way. Is there anything you would like to leave our audience with?
I don't think so, Dr. Bernie. I really appreciate you bringing me on. I appreciate finding you and finding this project, and I have very much enjoyed experiencing more synchronicities as I've attended more coincidence cafes, as I've read your book, and as I've connected with folks on TikTok. It's been an amazing experience. So I hope to continue.
Well, let's keep it coming, because it's wonderful to hear what you know, because it's so related to what I know and what I'm hearing from people older people who are also recognizing what you're recognizing. There's a need to put the older and the younger together as usual, and there's separations often. So I like being links, and so do you, I imagine. So maybe we can keep finding links, but I want to thank you very, very much for being you, and then bringing you onto this podcast. It's such a pleasure to know you, Lexi. Thank you.
You as well, Dr. Bernie. Thank you.
This psychosphere is our mental atmosphere, like a hologram of cosmic consciousness.